Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Digital Loop. Today we have a very special edition. Why? Because it's the two of us again together, but we also have a special guest. So we have three for the price of one. Great deal. Today we are in London and we are having a great conversation with our friend Mario Berta, who I would like him to introduce himself. Mario.
Hi, everybody. Like Ivan said, I'm Mario Berta. I work for Nova Founders. Is a venture capital fund mainly based in Asia, and I'm the director for growth. We have several companies. It's a little bit like rocket model. We build company in-house, and we also directly invest in other companies. So I'm director for growth for multiple companies. So I do the dirty jobs.
And you're based in Asia?
I'm based in Manila.
You're based, oh, wow.
I'm based all over Asia, like Gengis Khan.
So maybe the first question is a very generic question to start with. What kind of trends do you see in startups in Asia? Because it's a very specific market. For a long time, people saw Asia having great ideas, but a bit lagging behind, especially Southeast Asia, because maybe we'll exclude China and Japan and South Korea. But do you see any change happening?
Yeah, I saw when I first arrived in Asia, I was not in technology. I was in advertisement and telecom. 5 years ago, the companies in Asia, as Asia is, especially Southeast Asia, they have this phenomenon of family conglomerates where there is a family that is into banking, real estate, retail, airlines, water, energy, anything. They really did not care about tech companies, right? They really don't care about innovation, also because they control the market, the maximum have a competitor. So they're either a monopoly or duopoly. But then in the last 2-3 years, you notice that there is an Uber or something that comes into the world and disrupt industries. And then you find an Airbnb of the world that disrupt industries. Those guys are shitting in their pants now, literally. I saw like every telecom, small, medium, gigantic, they all start to have their VC fund. They all start to look for either ex-Rocket people, ex-management consulting
or even
people,
Rocket, because the biggest telco in the Philippines actually invested directly in Rocket.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
That's
PLDT,
a typical example.
Yeah.
So when PLDT invested $480 million into the Rocket IPO, was because, they wanted to discover, they wanted to be there because things are happening in this space. And the problem of Asia is that you get good companies. The problem are the teams. They're not that strong because you have a CEO which is a super visionary and has a great product, etc. But then it's very difficult to recruit talent for the same reason, because tech entrepreneurship, it's new in Asia. Like most of the company we are hiring in Nova, or I was hiring when I was working for Rocket, they were not coming from tech companies. They were coming from call center, from banks, from real estate. So very traditional businesses. Mm-hmm. So the culture of tech entrepreneurship, it's been built as we speak. That's why it's very, very exciting right now. It's a bit like Europe, let's say 15 years ago, when California was already established, Europe was just about to look at it now. Europe is very much established. You have very established cities like Paris, London, Barcelona, Berlin, etc. And now the shift is going to Asia.
But is it so, obviously, these companies are shitting their pants, to use your words, because they're afraid. But do you think they're actually serious? I think they're just putting money into like, oh, we have to do something. Because we see a lot of corporations just putting money because they have the pressure, but they still do not understand the market
Correct.
itself.
I think there are true trends. You have a telecom that opens a VCs that wants to finance and sponsor companies that ultimately benefit the telecom.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have more generalistic VCs that invest in e-commerce, in things that can benefit the telco, transportation. For instance, there is a fund in Asia called Inspire Group. They're opening now a parcel delivery company. It's called Delivery. Okay, they're going to compete with Uber, which is not a nice place to be. But the trend is the companies that you start see in Asia now are companies that solve Asia problems.
Yeah, because that was the question that I was about to ask, is that there's the other thing that is a lot criticized about Asia. Of course, that criticism is mostly towards China, is like, oh, it's only copycats. I mean, you've been working at a Rocket, and a lot of people say that. I'm not a big believer in that criticism, because I think that a lot of actually stuff that even if the idea is being copied, the execution at the end with local realities and
local
so
approach.
do you see also now entrepreneurs in Asia getting their own ideas without having to go and say, oh, we're just going to be the Uber for, or
Yes.
having to, do you see that?
Absolutely. There are companies in the Philippines. This is a big remittances country.
Yeah,
They are specialized in the remittances. Okay, they look at a specific corridor for the Philippines, which is the $18 billion industry. So Philippines receive officially $18 billion a year from remittances. Is 10% of the GDP, is 30% of the real estate market. So imagine unofficially what it gets in, because even my Filipino friends, they go in the United States, they spend $10,000, they buy screens, phones, clothes, and they come back in the United States, into the Philippines. So there are companies that are really solving Asia problem. For instance, I'm very excited about transportations companies, because to go from north to south of Manila, or Bangkok, or Jakarta, is 3 hours.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if it rains, it's unlimited.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you need to send a parcel from north to south to Manila, what do? So this company, they start to have motorbikers with an app. You pick up a parcel depending on the size, etc., and it just go and delivers the parcel for you. And one thing I would love to see, and I was in talk to doing it before, is a drone delivery. I just imagine the drones going out in Manila, in and out. They're probably gonna bump into some helicopter or some millionaire, but hey, it's part of the game. So.
No, but do you think, because the other thing is that you deal with a lot of emerging markets. Most of the markets, if you exclude Singapore, basically most of the markets you deal with, and Hong Kong, are emerging markets. So emerging markets have this quality of having a lot of bubbling ideas and a lot of problems to solve. But at the same time, the problem with emerging markets is that there might not be, and Ivan knows a little bit about that in Eastern Europe as well, although it's not exactly the same realities, is that there's also a less way to make money at the end, because people are just poor, especially on the B2C side.
Yeah, correct. So the bets with those companies is we are playing it's a 5, 7, 10 years play. When we are building an e-commerce company, like there's a big Indonesian company called Tokopedia.
Yeah.
They just raised $100 million for international expansion, but they have 280 million people in their home market, and now they're expanding, etc. The e-commerce, even Amazon in the United States, is how long it took before to be profitable? Nearly a decade, right? So and we talk about United States, where there are financial infrastructure, ground infrastructure to transport things, etc. There, it wasn't difficult to find the talent, not that difficult. Imagine in Asia, where one country is Muslim, the other one is Catholic, the other one is 1/3 Indian, 1/3 Chinese, 1/3 Malay. There is so much disparity, which makes it very, very difficult to create a true regional player. You just need very deep pocket. Look, when I was working for Easy Taxi, our competitor Grab Taxi rose $250 million at $1 billion evaluation, and it was operating in 5 countries. That's $50 million per country, right? That's a lot of money, and that's the way to do it. That's do you
think, because and then I'll let Ivan talk, because I'm sorry, I keep having new questions. Do you think that we see a trend of, the center of the entrepreneurship ecosystem in the world is still seen as being the Valley, right? San Francisco, Palo Alto, etc. A lot of investors there are starting to invest internationally, but do you see in Asia most of the money coming from local players, or do you see already international players?
We already see international players. Historically, has been Japanese VCs. They set up shop in Singapore. Riven Bright is one, JCI is one. I don't remember all the names. And they do seed A maximum. Now, what you have, our friend Michael Lintz from Golden Game Ventures is coming from San Francisco. Sequoia Capital has an office in Singapore, has an office in Shanghai. I saw Axel Partner and the Index, the guys here from Europe, they're also opening offices there. So it's a mixture of things, but originated was always money from Japan at the beginning. Now you start to see your own. Indonesia is going to have its own, Singapore has its own, plus it's the government's one. There are 3 in the governments which are heavily investing in they're doing in a Singaporean way, so super structure. Now they bought an entire piece of land, they build it, and it's free for startup to be in the most expensive office space in the world. They're gonna stay for free. Startup that they receive financing from Golden Gate Ventures, Monk Seal, which is another fund between Indonesia and Singapore, and the 3 Singaporean ones. Now they have access to financing from the banks, right? So the banks is gonna issue a loan to the company without taking any equity, right? But this is the way Singaporean works. Everything is structured from head to toes, and there are very, very clear paths.
Same in Manila?
Absolutely.
No, we should have. Sorry, but do they? Because another that we haven't mentioned is, of course, not NB. I mean, it's earlier stage. Is Dave McClure, 500 Startups, has been traveling in Asia for a while. He's been actually coming to the Philippines. I think it was last year. He did the first job.
Yeah, that's when I met him.
Yeah, exactly. So there's an interest. But my follow-up question is: do these investors, I'm going to maybe exclude Dave McClure because I think he does, do these investors actually understand the dynamics of Asia? Are they just not opening for deal flow and then just trying to move the companies back somewhere else?
It's a very good question. I think, again, you face different kind of investors. You face investors that are from Asia, and then maybe they made a reasonable amount of money in San Francisco, so they understand both of the two worlds, and probably these are the best because they understand the complexity of a real international technology space like California, and then they set foot in Asia. And then you have some investor that it just looks at the numbers and it just crunches number in a very management consulting way. And I personally don't believe in these kinds of investors because the real assets in Asia, I personally think, is the team, not really the product. Because the product cannot be completely wrong, but if you have an okay product but you have a super good execution team, you can get anywhere, simply because you don't compete. There is not much competition. If you want to create a successful company in San Francisco, good luck, right? You compete with the smartest people on the planet, the most well-traveled, they come from the best school, they have all the money because access to capital is very easy, etc. And there are hundreds of them, okay, in a city of 1 million. While in Asia, you don't have this stuff yet. We're getting there. We have a lot of smart kids coming back from studying Harvard. They come back, they open their own schools. They go and work for Facebook for 3 years. They come back and they open their own stuff. I saw the trend. I constantly see the trend happening.
In terms of quality of people, because one of the biggest, also the other, there's two parts of my question here. When I was living in the Philippines, you could see that a lot of the top players, so the top talents, basically, because of the lack of opportunity, and I'm not saying there's a lack by itself, but because they a perceived lack of opportunity in the Philippines, would leave.
Yeah.
This is why they have all these remittances.
It's a big problem for the Philippines.
All emerging countries actually have this kind of dynamic. When you say, okay, if I'm a great talent, I would have I would be appealed by going to either Europe or even when we're talking about entrepreneurship in the Valley. So that's the first part of my question is, can you actually make them stay now? And the second part of my question is, those who are in the country. And that's also another thing with emerging countries. We usually find a lot of great engineers, especially, for instance, in Eastern Europe. We have Ivan here to talk about it. But they like that a bit of the business sense. They can be dreamers, and that's a good thing because you need to have that vision. But they like a bit of like actually making a business. Do you see, first, the talent now remaining or coming back? And second, do you actually think that the talent for the business sense of making a company is there in Asia? And I know it's very generic question.
So I think it's a true things flow, meaning that the one that left years ago, they start coming back because they see that their home country is growing 6.5% a year, case of the Philippines. Mm-hmm. A lot of entrepreneurs, they study in the US, they open their company in the US, now they start to coming back. Maybe they're not gonna build a company for the Philippines, but they're gonna say, let's say, I'm gonna build my back office there. Because I know the country is growing very well, Filipinos are very good in certain things, etc. I don't see a lot of Thai people leaving the country.
Yeah, the dynamics are different depending on the country. Sure,
I see Malaysia living more, but also Malaysia has very big company themselves. So a lot of Malaysia are out of Malaysia because they work for Petronas or they work for the Kwok Group, Shangri-La, that is opening hotels all over the world, etc. Philippines is a very specific case. Is after mango, they export people in the Philippines, right? It's the second biggest export of the Philippines. It's people, and but it's also true that I see the youngest one, 20, 22, 23 years old, that are willing to leave the country. And I try to, a lot of my employees, they were staying with this taxi 1 year, 1.5 years, and they said, yeah, I got this job in Singapore. So what the hell you want to go to Singapore? It's 10 times more expensive. The salaries are not going to be 10 times what you're going to make here now. Your country is growing 6.5% a year. I wish Italy was growing 6.5% a year. Well,
Yeah, because you're Italian, we shouldn't have mentioned
yeah,
that
well,
from the start,
it's a dream. It's not a wish. It's a dream. But what I mean, I wish my home country was growing 6.5% a year, right? Don't you wish Greek was growing 6.5%?
Oh, well, we're going in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Sadly, yeah.
So, yeah.
In terms of the quality of the talent, can you find good engineers? Can you find good business people? Can you find?
I think it's country by country. So in the Philippines, you get great customer service. It's the best in the world with difference. Okay. Engineering, they're getting better. Okay. The thing is that you already start to see disparity. 5 or 6 years ago, you were finding okay engineer. They were costing $500, $700 a month. Now the very same engineer, which are okay, they cost you $1,000. Okay. Top-notch engineer, you pay them $3,000. Okay, very good one. They know their stuff, etc. But then you don't go beyond. Okay, there is not a Silicon Valley kind of style. It's very difficult to go in a very niche of quality. Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur has invested. The government has invested heavily in creating Cyberjaya, which is the Silicon Valley of Kuala Lumpur, where IBM. Oracle, all the big companies, they set some sort of R&D center or European Asia headquarters center, and that's creating ecosystem. Indonesia, I don't see this happening yet, right? Vietnam, same story. Okay, Vietnam, same story. So I think it really goes country by country, and I personally believe in Southeast Asia, the most advanced, apart from Singapore and Hong Kong, it's my bet it will probably be Malaysia.
One thing that, I mean, it's great that you've been giving us kind of like the big picture of the whole region, but I'm interested to know a little bit more about the specific competencies that you mentioned, that you have very good engineers, you have very good talent in specific areas, but at the end of the day, if you want to grow your business, you need to be strong in sales. And this is something that I have the impression that is very similar what you just explained about Asia with what's happening in Central Eastern Europe. That in Central Eastern Europe, we have great engineers, we have great programmers, but at the moment that you have to talk about business and actually growing the business, you lack that. And one of the reasons why I bring this up is when we met, you spoke, we met at the conference in Lebanon, the Banque du Liban Accelerate conference, and one thing that you really put emphasis on is on the fact of how important it is for startups, how important it is for companies to focus on sales. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you see about, what are the things that every single company, whether in Asia or Central Eastern Europe or anywhere, should focus on?
So I recently had my first experience in Eastern Europe, in Bulgaria and Sofia, visited common friends of ours, Stefan. I noticed a lot of similarities. I noticed great engineers. Like I remember spending time 2.5 hours with a company, understanding 10% of what they're trying to do. Like they're converting physical into unphysical for servers. It's very complex for me to understand. But I have no idea how to sell it. So they were trying to sell a super complex product with a sales cycle of 18 months, right?
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed that exactly the same thing. So you get good engineers also in Asia, but then they lack sales skill is the second step. They lack social skills. They cannot even, when they talk about their companies, they don't deliver the dream, right? Not because they don't believe it. It's just they're not.
They don't have the tools to actually express what they do.
They never did it before, right? And that's a problem, because if you don't manage to transfer your dream to someone else, you cannot hire what I call the infected people. You're going to hire people that either follow you.
And you also cannot find maybe the money, because you cannot actually infect the VCs to say, to make believe.
I remember I was in Bulgaria, and I do this also in Asia. I says, okay, so who is in this room has a sales job? And let's say 30% of the room raise their hands. Who of you is a CEO in this room? Everybody raised their hands. I said, guys, I'm so sorry. All of you are in sales, either you like it or not, because you sell your company to investors, you sell it to employees, you sell it to clients, you sell it throughout the organizations, etc. So all of you are in sales, either you like it or not. So it's a big problem. It's a very big problem that that is not easy to find. I think that the main reason is because Asian people, they avoid conflicts at any cost. Are extremely polite people, and they try to avoid conflicts. And I'm not saying sales is about conflicts, but if I say, do you want this? Yes. How much it costs? $10. Yes. Okay, I'm buying it. There's no negotiation here, right? Most of the time you get no, and they say, okay. Right? So because they don't like
is it that what you teach them actually? Because you mentioned you're a director of growth. Is it what you do? You teach people and startups to actually.
I teach organizations, certain vertical organizations about sales. And what I noticed is that they lack two things. First of all, they don't believe they can sell it. And that's the first biggest mistake, because if you don't believe in your product, there's no way you can sell it. And second, they don't follow up. Yeah. That's another trend.
Always be closing. This is what you used. It was fun because it's a very entertaining presentation. I think it's online. I put the link on the show notes of you in Lebanon. Actually, always be closing, which is a very famous line from Glenn Gross when Alec Baldwin comes into that room of car sailors and just like rips them off completely. And the interesting part is that you have to read the thing that part off by explaining what you just explained. And for the lack of time, we might not get there, but. Maybe a fun story to finish this episode with. What is the most crazy thing you did yourself to sell something or to meet someone?
You know which I'm going to mention.
Yeah, and I think it's a fun one too.
I was actually with my colleagues in Madrid a week ago, and we still remember the story. So in order to sell a contract to the Luanda port in Angola, I slept in the port of Luanda for 24 hours, like between two chairs, and the port of Luanda is not exactly the Shangri-La. But the way I did it, I brought a cake to the guards, and across the gate, I brought a cake to the PAs, the private assistant of the guy I wanted to meet, and they say, oh, okay, so cool, you can stay there. And then I waited for the to arrive until it didn't show up, and I had my contract there. So now I'm not gonna leave the office until you don't sign, because I spent here 24 hours, and there is not a spa here exactly. Right? So that was it's the one that always comes in my mind. If I dig down, I'm sure I have plenty, but that's the one I like the most.
So I guess we can close it out with the remarks that you need to be driven, you have resilience, and
I like the fact that you said infecting the dream. I think this is a very good, I think it's a very good way to explain sales to people who don't like the term sales, and say you still have to make the other people believe in you, whether it's investors, customers, or talent within your company. I think it's a very good way. I mean, we'll put a lot of links, the show notes, where to find you online. He's traveling all the time. He's mostly in Asia. I'm going to visit you soon, by the way. And so people, you can reach out to him. We'll find all the details in the show notes. Anything you want to add? We have 1 minute left.
This is the Asia century, guys. If you do not have an Asia strategy, don't bother.
And on this, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
As usual.
Thank you, Ivan. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Godspeed.